Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another Saturday where we actually interview the bloggers that appear right down here on my personal blog roll. Now, my good friend Aaron Bush is a blogger who I met originally as part of a blogging series called Men Who Knit. He is an expert master craftsman in terms of knitting and styling his own yarn and fiber. He is a champion dog breeder, and he also enjoys a lot of varied music and styles. And his blog, Aaron Knits, is featured on the blog roll. I'm very happy to have Aaron here today. Aaron, thank you for joining me this Saturday morning. How are you doing today?
Doing great, enjoying the peace and quiet before the rest of the house gets up.
So, for those who don't know, Aaron, can you explain the difference between what the perceived idea of people who think of knitting as the saintly grandmother with the two knitting needles doing this, and then you have a sweater about 4 months later, and the crafts and styles that you put together?
I think that a lot of that perception of knitting is really starting to fade. It's become a really popular craft for everybody, not just women, a lot of men, and everybody of every age. And I think over the last year, probably more people have learned how to knit than probably in the last 10 years alone. I don't know, I could be wrong, but it seemed like everybody picked up something new last year.
And one of the things that, if you are going to start in knitting and in other fiber arts, one of the best things you can do is, besides reading Aaron's blog, is go to the local fiber festivals. There are plenty in the upstate New York area. And from there, you can receive tips. You can see different styles, different techniques. And I was going to say, Aaron, can you give some examples of some of the things that you have been able to incorporate in your personal style from going to some of these specialized events?
Most of what I knit from is locally produced, either locally produced or locally dyed fiber or yarn. I think 90% of my stash, we just had this discussion last weekend at the men's knitting retreat, that like 90% of my stash is locally made or independently made product. It's not, the big name factory produced stuff. And I like it that way.
And one of the places where you can get where you've gotten fiber in the past is a mutual friend of ours, Terry Conroy, who operates a llama farm
Yes.
out in the Helderbergs.
Yes. Gotten a number of different fleeces from Terry. The first one was a llama named Stella. You know Stella.
Stella, God rest her soul.
That fiber, it was my first experience with llama, and Terry said, it's probably not very good fiber, and I'm like, but Stella's beautiful, so it was beautiful fiber. I think the next one that I got was Aslan's. I call him my llama boyfriend. He is just absolutely stunning. I got his second year fleece from Terry. She kept his first year fleece, and that was amazing, but so was the second year fleece. And so I spun some yarn for her from it that I think she still has hanging in the barn. But when I went walking up to the barn holding the skein of yarn in my hand and it was swinging back and forth, she says, it's just like his fleece does on him when he's moving. And it was really amazing to work with. So.
And another thing to take into account, in addition to working with fiber and yarn and wool and everything, it's not just the fiber itself, it's also the tools. And I can see over your shoulder a nice and intricate collection of spinning wheels and rods and other such material.
There are various hand spindles. I love spindle spinning. I don't produce a lot. I'm much more productive on a spinning wheel. I could probably turn my
Oh,
iPad way of that.
viewers would love to see that if you're able to do that.
And but I do love spindles, and there's a gentleman in New York, particularly, whose spindles I'm a big fan of, and he's made actually one of the spinning wheels that I own. He's an amazing woodworker, and his wife is a spinner, and he's a spinner. So, they can test out the products that he makes. So there's a lot of R&D that goes into his stuff, and I like that.
I also understand that you've had your many experiences in restoring spindles and spinning wheels. Am I correct in that?
Just a spinning wheel. I picked up one from I don't even exactly know where he got it from, but a friend, an antique dealer friend of a friend, and I got like 2 wheels in that deal. And the small wheel, was a sturdy little thing, and it was well built, and it just had the most awful brown finish on it. And I just hated looking at it. So I stripped the whole thing. Citrus strip, you recommended that.
You remember that citrus strip, yes.
On that wheel, and it didn't damage the wood at all. And it had some pretty intricate parts that I still had to sand out by hand. And that was brutal. My fingertips, bled for days after I was done with that, because there's, no way to get in there sometimes than to just, with sandpaper and your finger. And, but it turned out beautifully. I put a clear, just a clear coat of polyurethane on it, and the wood just glowed. And all of those little dark markings from the finish before that were left behind just made it gorgeous. That's the only wheel I think that I wouldn't even say restored, I just say refinished, but yeah.
And you've been able to use that wheel for your projects as well, am I correct?
Actually, I sold that wheel. Every men's knitting retreat, we have a tag sale table, and either anybody can put anything on the tag sale table and donate all or a portion of what they ask for that to the men's knitting retreat scholarship fund. And I don't remember how much I donated from that wheel to the fund, but I only kept about what I paid for it and what I paid for another gentleman down in Greenfield or Greenville that's south? I forget which one.
Greenville. Greenfield is in the Adirondacks.
Okay. Down in Greenville, and he rebuilt some parts of that wheel for me. So I just, all I asked for was what I paid for it and what I put into it, and everything else went to the scholarship fund.
One of the great things about your blog is that on occasion you will step away from knitting and fiber arts, and you will talk about one of the 2 loves of your life. Obviously, your first love of your life is your husband, Michael. Great guy.
Yes.
But the other love of your life is your dog, Halo.
Yes.
For those who haven't caught up, Halo has been shown at various dog shows, has taken home many ribbons. Yep. And can you tell the viewers how you came into possession of Halo and how Halo has been an integral part of your life?
Yes, and I will correct you because you introduced me as a breeder, dog breeder, and I'm not. I bought her from a breeder in Pennsylvania. We've been Italian Greyhound rescue volunteers for 20 years, probably more, 22 years. And for the entire time that we've lived in this house, 19 years, we've been a foster home for Italian Greyhound rescue. We've had well over 30 dogs spend some portion of their lives living here. We still have 2 Italian Greyhounds as well. But we saw the Pharaoh hound breed, I don't even remember where, I think it was a dog show at Hudson Valley back in the early 2000s probably. And I'm like, well, that's a beautiful dog. Let's look into, what rescue options they have for that, because every breed has a rescue group. dedicated to just that breed. And the same is true for Pharaoh hounds, but there were not a lot of Pharaoh hounds don't come into rescue because they're not a very popular breed. So they're not, there's not overpopulace in the pet community. So I was put in touch with the breeder who bred our first Pharaoh hound by Halo's breeder. I think I got that right. Yes, Lori put me in touch with Laura, who sent us our first Pharaoh hound, Soleil. It was a dog that she had to rehome. So she wasn't exactly a rescue situation, but it was a rehome situation, and we were open to that. And so that was our introduction to the breed. And then in 2014, when Soleil passed away, Lori, who had put me in touch with Laura, had emailed me. I think it was actually in January, so it was like the following, a couple of months later in January. Lori emailed me to say, if you think you're ready for another Pharaoh hound, I have a puppy in mind. And so it had only been like a couple of months since we had lost Soleil. I was, still kind of grieving. And, but I said, I was up shoveling the driveway, came back in, and then told Michael about the emails. It's like half an hour had passed. And as soon as I told him, he's like, yes, let's get it. He was ready. But I had to think about it. And we spent the weekend talking about it, and we decided that it was right. And so the following weekend, in January of 2015, was when we brought Halo home. And she was my first introduction to the dog show circuit, because part of my contract with Lori was that we would show her to her champion title. And it was a lot of fun. We traveled a lot together. We saw a lot of interesting things, went to a lot of cool places, and saw a lot of interesting people. And I tell people this is not a joke. Best in Show is not as much of a comedy as it is a documentary. And because I've met every character from that movie many times at many shows. They are all real people, based on real people, and based very well on real people. So yeah, he nailed it with that one. And so now we have a second Pharaoh hound from the same breeder. We call Jade, Halo's little sister. They're not sisters, but they're kind of cousins, I guess. But, she's our dog now, so she's Halo's sister. And she's our current dog that we're showing. So she's 3 points away from her champion title. And so we're working on that. And she's, as much as they are alike, Jade is very different from Halo. She's not a daddy's girl. She's not clingy and needy. She has no concept of personal space, but it's all on her own terms. And they have very different personalities. They're a lot of fun.
In the beginning of our talk, you mentioned about that you fostered Italian Greyhounds.
Mm-hmm.
Recently, the Greyhound racing circuit in Florida finally ended.
Yes.
There's only about 2 or 3 Greyhound tracks left in the United States. I think they're out in Oklahoma somewhere. Your thoughts about how, and this also goes to people that have been involved in horses, where, and if an animal that no longer can race, they're either, dumped off somewhere. And with Greyhounds, it's important that these animals are still, they're still viable pets. They're still wonderful creatures to own. Your thoughts on the fact that now that we're getting away from Greyhounds being used as race animals, what is the future for animals like that as pets, as companions?
Well, we have Italian Greyhounds. They're the toy breed version, so they're much different. They're not raced like their larger cousins, but Greyhounds are wonderful indoor pets, and they're wonderful hunting dogs. That's what they were really bred for. The racing and the industry that's become is just not, I don't think, what they should be known for. So. But yeah, greyhounds indoors, they're couch potatoes. You know, they're going to sleep for 10 hours a day. They need about 15 minutes of running around outside, and you know, then they're going to come back inside and sleep for another 10 hours. So they're really ideal pets. Italian greyhounds, like any toy breed, are a lot more active, a lot busier, a lot needier. So you know, taking care of them is completely different. So, but I think I'd like to see a lot more, you know, like less racing, but like more dogs in agility competitions, you know, things of that nature that are, you know, less about the money.
Oh yeah, I mean, I love watching the agility contests on YouTube, especially when you get the little Papillon dogs that can go through the entire course in 10 seconds flat, and then you end up getting a toy poodle that goes up to the top of one of the ramps and just sits there and says, "How am I doing?"
And it's the same thing with dog shows. You know, nobody makes money showing dogs. It's really quite the opposite. It's really kind of expensive, and especially from the breeder's perspective, because there's a lot that goes into each litter of puppies, you know, for them financially. That, you know, they just, you know, so people balk at the price that a reputable breeder will ask for a puppy, but they have to factor in that they're not going to be shelling out a lot of the vet bills for the puppy mill bred pet store dogs that cost them $500. So,
Most definitely.
yeah.
Going back to the fiber and knitting, can you give an example, or can you tell us an example of a project that you started, you weren't sure where it was going to go, but then when it was finally done, you were like, oh my God, I can't believe I created such a wonderful thing?
Yeah, if I could just run out into the hall closet and grab it. Actually, no, I think I put my sweaters away. Darn, it's in a bin downstairs. I made a cabled hoodie that I think took me probably, you said, yeah, 4 months. You have a sweater. Oh God, I wish it was only 4 months. That bitch took me 2 years to make. It was awful. It was so complicated and so tedious because the pattern just made knitting it so slow. It had cables up the sides, up the center, up the sleeves, up the hood. It was, you know, it was just a labor of love.
Now, have you?
It, when I started it, it was just the body of it, and I'm like, I'm looking at this. I don't know. It just seemed abnormally small. I think that was just because of the nature of the pattern. Just drew everything in, and I'm looking at it. I'm like, I'm never going to fit in this thing. But once it's finished and it's, you know, blocked out to size, it was perfect. So.
I was going to say, have you ever entered any of your creations in knitting into competition of any sort?
Yes, I think it was 2009. I entered a lace shawl in the Altamont Fair that won like first place, and then like best in fair or something, just a ribbon somewhere.
Oh, I know that feeling, the ribbon somewhere.
But I was relatively new knitter. I think I only started knitting in like 2006, and that lace shawl. So it was a circular lace shawl that measured probably like 7 feet, you know, in diameter. It was crazy big. But it also wasn't done with lace weight yarn, so it wasn't one of those wispy and delicate things. It was, you know, it was a little more substantial. But it was really pretty, and I was really just shocked that for being like my second or third lace project, it had, you know, won the whole fair. It was amazing.
Well, you know, that's a fantastic thing.
And so I donated that to our annual Italian Greyhound rescue fundraiser auction. And I don't even remember what it sold for. Again, I was like shocked, but I was glad to see the money go to a good cause.
All right, trick question here. I understand that you are a big fan of 1980s alternative, new wave, and college radio. So,
Yes.
so who is the greatest band of that time period, and why is it Echo and the Bunnymen?
Where's the case? Anyway, spinning wheel.
The wheel.
I don't know if you can see that.
I can see
So I'm
it.
looking at it at a weird angle. Yes. Why is it Echo and the Bunnymen? Sorry. I'll put this back to my music stand now. I don't know. As a teenager, the music that you listen to, you find ways of connecting, parts of that music to your life and making it meaningful to you. And especially in the late 80s, it was very true for me with them. And I don't know, everybody's got a favorite band.
Oh, most definitely.
They're still around. I hope they have a US tour again, because I will make an effort to go to wherever the nearest show is. I think the last one I went to was Northampton, Massachusetts. So the first time I'd been to the Calvin Theater, it was really nice.
Mhm. Where if somebody were to get started in fiber arts, what are some of the recommendations? Like if I walked up to you and said, Aaron, I want to get involved in this, give me at least 3 or 4 suggestions so that I can enjoy what I'm doing and not get immediately frustrated.
Have patience. Learn that mistakes are not a bad thing. We learn from them. We learn very well from our mistakes. At least we should. And more patience. So whatever you start with, whether it's fiber arts or I'm learning to play the violin. I'm a little over a year into it. It's not really a pandemic pursuit. I can't say that, but I can say that has helped. Give me more time to practice because it needs something to do. But I started actually in January of last year, and I've had the violin since 2014. And it's incredibly challenging, to say the least. The amount of multitasking that one has to do just to make that instrument sound not so bad is incredible. But it's been a lot of fun to learn, and I'm enjoying it. And so now I've got a viola, which I'm not really practicing, but kind of picking up every once in a while, just to remind myself that here's another string instrument. I do think it kind of fits me better because it is a little bit larger, but.
Going to your blog, where do you get the inspiration for an idea that will end up eventually becoming a blog post?
That's hard to say. For knitting, it's easy. Anything that I knit, I can certainly find, a lot of things to write about that I haven't been writing much lately. It's because, excuse me, steak. I haven't been knitting much. I've knit in the past year. I've knit 2 things. I've knit a sweater and a hat.
We'll have to work on this here, man.
Yeah. So this, hopefully this winter I'll have some more stuff to make, time to make stuff. But, this spring I've been outside working in the backyard nonstop, ever since weather started permitting. And, so I haven't really been I haven't started really a new project. Except maybe I think a pair of mittens that I started at the retreat, but I had made the first mitten. I don't know when I made the first mitten. Blur.
It's all good. It's all good. So a couple more questions. Where do you think that fiber and knitting will progress in the future?
Oh, I don't know. Geez, that is a trick question. I don't know about progression, but people are always going to be knitting. People are always going to crochet. There's always going to be weavers. People are always going to want to do something with their hands. And I think that's, it's a necessary thing. For me, working with my hands keeps me, and helps improve my dexterity. Psoriatic arthritis that affects mostly my knees but some other joints as well. And so staying mobile and staying flexible and maintaining that tactile, dexterity sense is important.
And I guess one more thing, have you come across people, especially at the men's knitting retreat or in other locales, where people have said that knitting or working with fiber has helped them get through things like, oh, I don't know, PTSD or trauma as a form of relaxation, as a form of meditation that ends up creating clothing at the process?
Mm-hmm. I know a few guys that have used it as a helpful tool to quit smoking. Geez. I don't know about anything more than that, but everybody, for everybody, it's a relaxing activity, at least until you screw something up and then you have to rip something back, 3 hours worth of work, and then you're, inventing curse words. But for the most part, it's a activity.
Yeah, and then you end up going on places like Ravelry, and
I actually haven't logged on to Ravelry in a long time. They've gone through some changes. There's been issues with the management. There's been issues with the website. There's been just a lot of issues that Ravelry themselves haven't handled well. And I don't know, it's not been a very, nice place.
no.
Welcoming, at least. So,
Well, if anything else, definitely a good read for all you readers out there. Go over here and you look for the link that says Aaron Knits. And there's new posts every week. And they're definitely worth reading, both about knitting and about Aaron's home life, with whatever show he's taking Halo and Jade to.
yeah. Halo's done now. I don't have to travel with her anymore. It's just Jade.
There's no master's class for her?
She's very good in the car, too. I'm very grateful for that.
I still say that the Halo should have gone to Westminster.
I enjoyed going to Westminster just as a spectator. I would never want to be there as a participant. Nope. Not for me. Thank you very much. Yeah. But it's really fun to go and watch.
I've watched it on TV. It just, for some reason, it's so hard for me to I see the dog breed and I'm trying to think, okay, why is this one better than that one? Why is this one better than that one?
Yeah.
And at the end, it's a dog that has like 7 different names.
Those judges can see a lot of things that we don't know. So that's what they're trained to do.
Well, good for them. I just see dogs that have good masters, and they're loved at home. That's all I see.
Yeah.
Aaron, thank you so much for being part of this. I'm so glad to have you here on a Saturday. And again, Aaron Knits over on the blog. Thank you again for joining me.
Thanks, Chuck. Have a great day.